Songs dot the Ramakrishna Kathamrita as abundantly as do the homely illustrations through which Ramakrishna effortlessly illuminated areas of psychological, spiritual, and everyday relevance that constantly intersect and inflect our lives. The abundant presence of song in the text also creates rich dialogic interfaces between the documentary realism of M's writing and the use of music to illustrate, expand upon, extend, and subtly nuance philosophical disquisition. Sri Ramakrishna was often in the practice of using song to illustrate or reinforce subtle implications of philosophy. For instance, in order to underscore the idea that Brahman Kali was unknown and unknowable and ultimately inaccessible to language and signification, he would sing Ke Jane Kali Kamon, as he did to Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar on 5 August 1882. Indeed, Ramakrishna's abundant musical proclivities, spontaneous breaking into song as an illustration of a point, gather and expand the accounts of gatherings, conversations, his joyous peregrinations within the city of Kolkata, traveling to the zoo, to the theatre, and to devotees' house. These songs add greatly to the joyousness of the text, offering a different recursive angle to M's patient and minute historical documentation. In his comprehensive historical study of Indian music, Swami Pragyanananda provides rich details about the multiple cultural and musical contexts of mid-19th century Bengal. In his analysis of the Dhrupad and the Kirtan in the second half of the 19th century, he makes an observation about Ramakrishna. Quote, Ramakrishna Paramhamsa appeared in this junctural period, 1836-1886, and revived the spirit of religio-devotional songs. Composed by Shakta Vaishnava composers like Ramprasad, Kamalakanta, Raja Ramakrishna, Dasharathi Rai, Nilkantha, and others. From Bhupendranath Kundu's book Sri Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita, Gan, Gayak, Gitikar, one learns that a total of 238, including songs mentioned in the appendix, have been sung, and 524 times in all in the Ramakrishna Kathamrita. Kundu points that Sri Ramakrishna had an outstanding memory, and the songs he had heard in jatras were memorized by him, as he learned and memorized what he heard of the Puranas, Ramayana, and Mahabharata from the Kathaks. M writes that Ramakrishna's voice was or like that of God, Devo Durlabh. Ramakrishna was also refers to as Bhajanananda, or happiness over music, chanting, singing, as one of the three crucial forms of Ananda or joy. The other two are Vishayananda, happiness over matter, senses, and Brahmananda, over the realization of God. Ramakrishna is described as singing in a state of delirious ecstasy, bhabon motto, several times in the text, and of being totally immersed in bhava on an Amavasya on 19th September 1884. The preponderance of music as important narrative determinant in the Kathamrita comes with Ramakrishna's encounter with Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. This meeting on 5 August 1882 is described in detail in the Kathamrita. Ramakrishna tells Vidyasagar that the sense of me and mine stems from ignorance, as do statements like my house, my money, my education, and all my wealth. One should say instead, "Oh Lord, you are the doer, and all this is yours. Your family, your house, your children, they are all yours." This feeling comes from knowledge or jnana. Ramakrishna further goes on to say to Vidyasagar, is it possible to know her through intellection and ratiocination? Be her servant and call upon her. And then the great mystic and artist par excellence breaks into song in a state that M describes as premonmotto or drunk with love. কে জানে কালী কেমন ষড় দর্শনে না পায় দর্শন. These songs have a deep theoretical basis in Tantra symbolism and epistemology. Like, for instance, the references to the chakras and the swan, which is also the Paramahamsa. We need to keep in mind that Ram Prasad, the composer of the song, was a renowned Shakta, worshipper of Kali, of 18th century Bengal. The other Shakta composers whose songs are also sung in the Kathamrita are Kamalakant Chakraborty and Kamalakanta Bhattacharya. There is no doubt that Shakta strand in this text in the form of powerful affect in Ramakrishna's attitude as Kali's child, and its presence in the innumerable instances where Ramakrishna equates Kali with Brahman of the Upanishads is the most important discursive strand. The proliferating of songs dedicated to Kali also become proof of how powerful the Shakta tradition was to the heart of Bengal at that time, and the powerful hold that Ram Prasad had over Ramakrishna's mind. The following song sung by Ramakrishna in Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar's presence is another one composed by Ram Prasad, and once again underscores the idea of the inscrutability of Kali. মন কি তত্ত্ব করতারে যেন উন্মত্ত আধার ঘরে, সে যে ভাবের বিষয় ভাব ব্যতীত অভাবে কি ধরতে পারে? O mind, what theory do you construct around Kali? Groping in a dark, confused space, she is the very stuff of bhava. Without bhava, feeling, how will you know her? This song reminds one of Kamalakanta Chakraborty's song which begins, Jotone হৃদয় রেখো আদরিনী শ্যামা মাকে, মন তুই দেখ আর আমি দেখি আর যেন কেউ না দেখে, which means that Kamalakanta is entreating his mind to retain the secret, the deep truth about his understanding of Kali, and that this knowledge is too precious and too sacred to be shared with anyone else. The effect of Ramakrishna's own singing of this song is to transport him into a state of mystic exaltation. M describes that he becomes samadhistho, engrossed, which means immersed in samadhi, and that his hands become anjali baddho, or folded in prayer. He sits completely immobile on the bench that he had been sitting on previously. Ramakrishna explains the song's meaning to Vidyasagar, and he implies that not all things are knowable, and sometimes they may only be known through partial understanding, through subliminal feelings, and through half intuition. To try to know God or Brahman is, as Ramakrishna tells Vidyasagar, the futile and outrageous attempt of a salt doll to map the ocean. One of the most significant strands in the narrative of the Kathamrita takes place through the rich intercommunicative space that is established through Ramakrishna's frequent importuning of Narendranath to sing. Singing becomes the inter-affective space that enacts one of the principal modes of union between devotee and spiritual ideal, of disciple and master and vice versa, between two lovers of God, between two men or individuals given to artistic expression, and an incredible example of yoga or union. This is how the context of the song is first introduced in the Kathamrita. As M describes Ramakrishna's ecstatic reaction to Narendranath's singing, his utterly captivating smile, Bhuvan Mohini Hashi, comes forth, and M observes to himself that other than Ramakrishna, he had not heard anyone sing so sweetly. Quote, Thakur stands immobile, his eyelids still, even as his breath stilled. On asking, a devotee told him that this was samadhi. Srimo had never seen anything like this, or even heard of anything like this. He wonders to himself that is it possible for someone to gain such oblivion of one's external surroundings simply by constantly focusing one's mind on God? God knows, he thinks to himself, what deep and great extent of faith and devotion gives a person such self-oblivion. And then M goes on to describe the song. Chintayo mamo manusho hari sid ghano niranjano. Hari permeates my consciousness, deepening and enriching my mind, whose light is ineffable, whose light is entrancing, who delights the heart of the devotee. Narendranath then goes on to sing the following lines. Hridhi Kamola Shane Bhajo Tar Sricharon. দেখো শান্ত মনে প্রেম নয়নে অপরূপ প্রিয় দর্শন. Worshipping his feet in the lotus of your heart, drink in the divine sight with the calmness of your mind and the love in your heart. The song goes on and Narendranath sings again. Siddhanando দরশে ভক্তি যোগ আবেশে হওরে চিরমগন. Translated In the ocean of consciousness and delight, and lost in the ecstasy of the yoga of bhakti, immerse yourself, O mind. This is probably a kirtan because it has the akhar or repetition of key lines characteristic of kirtan. However, it also has a certain formality of diction and structure which gives it commonalities with the Dhrupad, a classical vocal form popular within urban contexts of musical culture in Bengal. Again, songs on Kali proliferate in the text. Ramakrishna sings several of these songs, many of them composed by Ram Prasad Sen. And it is obvious that Ram Prasad's songs had left an indelible impression on his mind. As Bhupendranath Kundu informs us, Ramakrishna sings 26 songs composed by Ram Prasad. This 18th century Shakto worshipper wrote songs celebrating Vatsalya towards Kali. His images rooted in Tantra, iconography, and everyday observed village life have simple yet engaging tunes. Ram Prasad succeeds in creating a community idiom of music in Bengal, which one relates to even today. Perhaps the emphasis of Vatsalya in Ram Prasad's songs allows for a commonality of feeling with Ramakrishna and accounts for the latter's spiritual and musical kinship with him. A spectacular Kali song that enfolds the text in rare suggestiveness is Gaya Ganga Prabha Shadi, which is sung by Ramakrishna in Girish Ghos's presence. Gaya Ganga Prabha Shadi, Kali Kashi Kanchi ke bachaye. Kali 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 bole amar অজপা যদি ফুরায়. Who wants Gaya, Ganga, Prabhash, Kashi and Kanchi? If by saying Kali I can remove my habit of not chanting God's name. This song is remarkable for its alliteration on Ga and Ka, for introducing the river Ganga as one of its images. Another Kali song written by Kamala Kanta Chakraborty, which enfolds Kali in both poetic suggestiveness and inscrutability, is Shama Ma Ki Amar Kalo Re, Shama Ma Ki Amar Kalo. Is my mother Shama black? Is my mother Shama black? Which he sings in Keshav Chandra Sen's presence, positing that Kali appears black because she is far away. Once one gets to know her, she doesn't appear black anymore. This is the language of absolute love for the deity. In the Kathamrita, one sees Ramakrishna's ecstatic love for Kali, Krishna, Chaitanya, and even Radha or Srimati. Certain songs sung by Ramakrishna are also sung by Narendranath Datta. Narendranath had difficulty in accepting the idea of a personal God and also the idea of the avatar. Over and over again, he expresses doubt over God's existence. And yet, Narendranath's skepticism and immersion in music on the other. As it were, fuses contradictions and creates a perfect resonance. As he later on in his life declares, music is the highest art, and for those who understand, the highest worship. Music was also part of the seva that he rendered Sri Ramakrishna, and a powerful, effective tie between them. This kind of interchange electrifies the narrative texture of the Kathamrita, bringing into it a profoundly dramatic quality and undercuts its documentary realism with a sense of the sublime.